Howdy, fellow movie fans, and welcome to the conclusion of the greatest movie franchise tournament brought to you by the Wisco Movie Watchers Club and those Davies boys. As always, we are your hosts. Those Davies boys, Evan and Dylan Davies. Final four of the greatest movie franchise tournament.
Yep.
How are you feeling overall about this tournament? Is it shaking out in a way that you thought it would? Is there something that could have changed?
Well, it's hard to say because it was random.
Right.
It truly proved that it was random because some of these definitely would have got further than what they did.
So let's talk. If you're part of the recorded audience, you've already seen the recap bracket up. If you're part of the Twitch audience live, you're not seeing that. You're just getting, your favorite boys talking about movies. But when you say that, what are the ones that stick out most obviously that probably should have gone on, but maybe
I
they're
would.
not, because we did a full mathematical process. It wasn't as if
Oh no,
we
that's what
cheated
I'm
or
saying.
anything.
It's like, had you told me The Godfather would be out as early as it did
Sweet 16, yeah.
before even looking at any numbers, I'm saying, um, stuff like had you told me that um, even Deadpool, I would have guessed would go further because I would guess the numbers actually were higher than what they were.
Sure.
Um, and then there's stuff that wasn't surprising at all, like all the horror franchises. I did not expect to go far,
Yeah.
even though like those are my darling picks. But
I mean,
yeah, I didn't expect much from
the
them.
big ones to stick out to me was the two dark horses that have made runs that I was not expecting at all. One of which is in the final four. I
Yeah,
fought for John Wick to be in because I thought it deserved to be in. I didn't think John Wick was going to get as far as it did. And How to Train Your Dragon, I argued it as a play-in round because I didn't think it deserved to even be in the true tournament guaranteed. And I made it all the way to the Elite Eight. So I
yeah.
think it speaks to the quality.
And then like the Planet of the Apes, I would have guessed go further. There's Back to the Future as well, for
Star
sure.
Wars, I definitely thought would have at least made it to the Elite Eight.
I knew I knew Star Wars wasn't going to get as far as what people would expect, only because the numbers I did expect to be very inconsistent.
I mean, I agree with that. It's more so name brand recognition. The two that I thought were shoo-ins to get in later were Star Wars and James Bond. But then when you actually sit and do the math on them, you're like, no, they don't deserve to make it that far.
Well, in terms of numbers, James Bond actually has one of the lowest
Right.
in terms of averages.
And I mean, Star Wars it's not terrible, but it's not
No, it's
great.
very middling.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if it's in the bottom half of all of our franchises in general. I don't know if it is.
Yeah.
I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked if it does. There is a weird dividing line too of how the math shook out, but you've already seen how this bracket comes down. We have a final four of Indiana Jones, The Dark Knight, and those two are taking each other on, and then it's The Lord of the Rings taking on John Wick, and then we'll have a final.
Now, I do have a question. We're throwing impact score in here now for franchises.
Yes.
How do you want to do this? Do you want me to give a score out of 5, you give a score out of 5, we add it together to have a score out of 10? Or do you want to just argue between us to give a score out of 10?
I would say let's argue between have one number.
Okay. Because I don't know if we're going to have the same view on some of them.
I don't expect us to, but I want us to have a true aggregate on what it
Okay.
is. Because I think the beauty of all the math has been we had true aggregates of opinion. We didn't just do us. The only time it was just us was the play-in rounds.
Yeah, and now with impact score, now there's 7 different categories that are thrown together to have a total score. I think we should do John Wick versus Lord of the Rings first. That's probably the least interesting matchup.
What are you talking about? We already talked about this at the end of the other episode. John Wick, as long as he can get through Gandalf, can take out the Fellowship.
No, he can't. Not when I'm arguing on behalf of him.
True.
Um, so to recap John Wick's scores.
Well, let's go through. John Wick has made it here.
Oh yeah, his journey.
He took out Your Darling, Halloween, which
Not surprising.
let's be honest here, Halloween didn't have a shot to do anything. There's a
No,
reason I put it. I was like, Halloween should just be in the tournament because I was like, if it's, I didn't think it had a chance to make it out of the play-in if we put it in the play-in. So I was like, let's just put it in the tournament, get some horror representation, and go from there. So John Wick took out Michael Myers in Halloween. It took out Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, which was a shockingly low performer. And
yeah,
some way, shape, or form, it has survived the snap, and it has taken out Thanos, Captain America, and Iron Man's all Phase 3, and it has made it to the Final Four.
mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the juggernaut of the tournament, the most obvious one seed of an NCAA tournament ever in this capacity, Lord of the Rings has taken out the Apes reboot franchise, which, again, if it doesn't, every single battle of Lord of the Rings, all those losers win almost every other matchup they're in. They just randomly get stuck with a bad seed because
Yep.
it takes out the Apes reboot franchise. It takes out not possibly, the two most consistent performing franchises in the game with Mission Impossible in the round of 16 and in the Elite 8, it takes out Harry Potter, both of which are incredibly consistent franchises.
Yeah. Yep.
And now Lord of the Rings gets to take on the dark horse, darling of the tournament, if you will, except in Dylan's mind, in John Wick.
Yeah. Okay, so to recap the scores for John Wick, I gave a 6.5 out of 10. Evan gave 7.75. The critic average was an 89.5%, so 8.95 out of 10. Audience average was 86.5%, so 8.65. The letterbox average out of 5 was a 3.77. The IMDb average out of 10 was 7.48.
Mm-hmm. And that adds
And
to
now
a
we're waiting.
46.87 total prior to impact score.
So now, once we add impact score, I'll weight each category out so it's out of 100 and rather than out of 70.
Well, I was going to say, why don't we just get to the 70 score and then convert the 70 to 100? So then you don't have to do as much math.
I already did all the math, so don't mind it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then Lord of the Rings recapping scores 9 from me, 9.5 from Evan, 9.37 critic score, 9.2 audience, 4.43, which is the highest out of any franchise for Letterboxd, and then 8.9 for IMDb. Again, the highest out of any franchise.
Correct. So, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's highest out of the Rotten Tomato scores as well. It's one of them at the very least.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. I don't know if for a fact it is, but it's definitely up there for sure. Maybe Toy Story, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. So we see the Juggernaut status versus the Dark Horse status very clearly. Let's go let's go John Wick first. Impact score. Positives and negatives, both of which add to the score.
Okay, what is it? What out of 10? What are you viewing as like an average? 5 or 6?
6, I would assume, is going to be. I just view it very much like school. 6 is a D.
Okay. So,
because the thing is, like, when I go to
let's
John
think
Wick,
of its impact on the movie landscape as a whole. Because I do think it had a big impact on action movies. There's definitely more of a emphasis on like longer takes, more of an emphasis on like showing fatigue throughout an action sequence.
Sure, it's gone too far the wrong direction, but it's at least done it.
But that's what I'm saying is it definitely one of the things that I'm viewing as an impact is how did it affect ripoffs of that franchise?
Right.
And there definitely were a lot of John Wick esque action movies made after the first one.
Well, there's some really good ones, and then there's some really terrible ones. Like for instance, when we go back to last year's tournament for the greatest action scene tourney that we did, Atomic Blonde
Yeah,
was in there. Atomic Blonde is a very John Wick style action film, and it's
yeah.
great. I love Atomic Blonde, but there's been a billion streaming exclusive franchises that are like, we're gonna do our John Wick, and it's terrible in
I'm just gonna
comparison.
look up John Wick ripoff movies.
So here's what I will say: impact score towards John Wick. Number one, it has positively and negatively influenced the way action films are shot and the way action in movies is shot. No longer is it everyone's invincible, but they kind of are still because they're taking cuts and bullets and everything to the point where you're like,
Yes.
come on. But still there. Two, I think they've both negatively and positively influenced the look and the color grading of action films in general, to where many action films only have the John Wick style of color grading and lighting.
Mm-hmm. Stylized, yeah.
Super stylized. Three, it has spawned a franchise because it's shown that cheaper action movies can still make a lot of money.
Yes. I do think one thing going against John Wick is the fact that what was it called? Ballerina
Yeah.
with Anna de Armas didn't do well.
Yeah.
It kind of middling reviews and also I don't know if it flopped, but it definitely didn't do great at the
It didn't
box
do
office.
great. I mean, I reviewed it. I enjoyed it because I enjoy the flavor of ice cream, but I also said at the time, this ain't going to be a box office hit. This isn't going to, or a
Yeah.
big box office win. This isn't a movie that's going to change the landscape. It's a
Yeah.
straightforward John Wick
So
movie.
it's not like John Wick had the power to carry like name recognition alone was able to carry.
Well, also, I think there was confusing marketing on that, but I agree with you. It did spawn. Now, granted, this is, I think, more of a commentary on the modern media landscape. It does have the Continental spin-off show, but I think that's more of a
I've literally never heard a single thing about that show though.
correct. So that's what I'm saying. I think that's more of a commentary of anything with any semblance of popularity can get a spin-off now.
Yeah.
Having said that, I also think there's an underlying low-key stuff that's happened where we have gotten reboots and interest into older franchises because of how revitalized Keanu Reeves' career was by John Wick. I do not think we get a fourth Matrix movie, not saying anything about I've never seen it because I don't care about the Matrix to the point where we didn't even include it in this tournament.
Yeah.
But
From what I've seen, it's bad.
I don't think you get a Point Break reboot, even though it's never done well. I don't think you do another Matrix movie. I don't think you have all these reports that they're going to do Bill and Ted. I don't think you get all these other little things of Keanu. Just we got Keanu Reeves, it'll work. Like even Cyberpunk 2077, which is a great video game that is kind of flawed in how it came out, but a lot of people love it. That's mostly influenced by the fact that Keanu Reeves is like the guy in
Yeah.
the game. So it has a lot of underlying pinnings of what it did, but I did it revolutionize the film industry? No. Did it revolutionize technology in the film industry? No. So when I look at its impact score, I'm looking a 4 maybe. It 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 doesn't become a standard bearer of action. it still doesn't become that 80s action franchise that everyone compares to. It's not Die Hard, where everyone compares everything to Die Hard.
Yeah. One of the things about it is, did it spawn like rip-offs of the story? Where like Die Hard's a great example where literally people would pitch stuff as it's Die Hard blank.
Yeah.
It's Die Hard on a bus. It's Die Hard, whatever.
Right.
So I actually would agree. I think it's right around a 4. Are you comfortable with 4?
I'm very comfortable with a 4.
Okay. That I think is fair. Because like, even though I don't personally like its impact on action, like you do have to say it did have an impact.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Let's see here.
Well, where does it bring its score? Well, let's don't reveal the score. Let's just talk
Okay.
impacts, and then we'll add them all together afterwards. You can do the math, but let's just whatever.
Yeah.
Now let's go to Lord of the Rings. I do think that Lord of the Rings, impact-wise, is in the 2 or 3 category of the final 4. I do not think it's a 1. Having said that, though, ironically, I do think it is the one. I think it's the fantasy film standard bearer by which all is compared.
The problem is, Lord of the Rings comes out at the exact same time as Harry Potter.
Correct.
I think Harry Potter has a far bigger impact on Hollywood than Lord of the Rings does. Because you did not get a glut of fantasy movies that are marketed and made for adults after Lord of the Rings. You get a lot of teen fantasy stuff. Now, they go in tandem because they are literally made at this exact same time.
Because I will
The
say this:
first Harry Potter movies.
I don't think you could get Game of Thrones without Lord of the Rings. I don't think Harry Potter impacts Game of Thrones. I think Lord of the Rings impacts Game of Thrones.
But Game of Thrones also comes out 9 years after Lord of the Rings.
I agree, but it's also far
I don't
closer
know.
to a Lord of the Rings-esque
I don't even know if
story.
you can. I would agree with that, but I don't know if you can say there's a direct connection there.
That's fair.
Because you have to look at it like 2 years after Lord of the Rings comes out. So 2005, 2006. Because that's usually about how long a movie takes to make, is about 2 years.
Yeah.
So what was happening in the landscape of movies around 2005 in terms of fantasy? It's all teen, hopeful teen.
It's Aragon and stuff like that.
Yeah. Aragon, yes. It's like this a little bit later, but like Percy Jackson.
No, they all go the coming of age
Golden
fantasy
Compass.
Story. Yeah.
Like all those. So like that's why I do think Lord of the Rings has a big impact. I think it has a huge impact in terms of technology in filmmaking. That's where I think it has the most impact.
I think it has more of an impact on filmmaking in the film industry in terms of how movies are made. But the why movies are made, I think Harry Potter would have more of an impact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
the
with Lord of the Rings,
the visual artistry of Lord of the Rings is insane in terms of the impact of things.
Yeah, you get Weta pretty much coming out of the fold.
Yeah,
with Lord of the Rings, like I'm sure they did a bunch of stuff before Lord of the Rings, but that's really what causes them to soar in terms of popularity.
Right.
Because now you have Weta doing the Avatar movies and everything else. They're like the most respected visual effects house. They also kind of pioneer motion capture or perfect it, really.
They are part of the pioneering, but they are certainly the perfecters.
Yeah, and then you also have them creating like literally creating stuff made for Lord of the Rings. So like crowd simulations and all that. So
I
It's
think
kind of
that's
hard to
slightly
say.
difficult because they're doing it simultaneously with ILM, but I do think Weta does a much better job of it. And
Yeah,
and it's tough because Phantom Menace has those elements where you can't say like, oh well, no, like Phantom Menace comes out. The other thing people forget is the making of Lord of the Rings really starts in '97. It doesn't start in like '99, 2000. That's where some of the principal photography happens, sure, but this was like the actual technical aspects of the Lord of the Rings happen all the way back almost mid 90s, not late 90s, like not just exclusively late 90s. So there is a bit of that competition of how those things are made visually. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a comparison. I'm not saying the Gungan army and the droid army in Phantom Menace looks bad in comparison, but in comparison, I think it looks mightily different that, the Ride of the Rohirrim from Return of the King looks better than any or like all the Urukai outside of Helm's Deep is a far more impressive, cool shot in
yeah.
Lord of the Rings than any of the army big shots in Star Wars at the
It's
same
funny
time.
also because I think Lord of the Rings actually has a negative impact on stories within their own world because those movies are so good that now we're comparing The Hobbit to them, we're comparing Rings of Power to them, and everyone's like, "Oh, these are actually kind of shit compared to Lord of the Rings."
I think again, yeah, I think there's an interesting aspect to it. I think it impacts the impact score positively for Lord of the Rings, but it's negative.
Yes,
But it has a negative impact in the sense that Rings of Power is not a great series, but I don't think it's shit. I think it's shit in comparison to the trilogy, but I don't think the series
yes.
itself is trash.
The problem is, yeah, people have such high expectations now of anything Middle Earth that it's like, yeah, it is because the Lord of the Rings movies are so
Well, I
good.
think it's the same thing that I think personally I have viewed that a lot of people unfairly judge the Batman in a negative way because all they do is compare it to the Dark Knight. Because the Dark Knight is so good that everyone's
Yep.
like, well, that's the standard for Batman. If you can't hit that, then it's what's the point? And it's like, it's a different Batman. You just gotta judge it on its own merits as best you possibly can. But it's hard to not compare things like that. Same thing. I think The Hobbit. The one thing I will say is that is difficult, and I think Star Wars would certainly be a victim of this. The Batman franchise as a whole over time would be this, but not necessarily in franchises together. Is Indiana Jones will certainly see this as well of the influence of digital technology versus building things as much as possible and having digital tech be an accentuator, not the driver. Where The Hobbit, how much of that is digital in comparison to how much of Lord of the Rings is digital? Like they built so much for Lord of the Rings. They did classic camera movements and shots where they weren't digitally morphing down hobbits and dwarves and stuff. They were using forced perspective shots and things of that
Yeah.
nature so that Elijah Wood looked like a small hobbit and Ian McKellen looked like a giant
But
wizard, you know?
uh, I think that's actually in terms of an impact score, a negative because people didn't take away that stuff from Lord of the Rings. Like you didn't see a continuation of those things,
Which is
more
hilarious because that's
practical
exactly what they
stuff.
should have. But that I think that's more of an industry wide standard as opposed to a Lord of the Rings problem. Is like, well,
Oh no,
digital's
no,
cheaper. Let's just do it that way. It's like it's not always what should we do.
no. But I'm saying because people didn't take away those things, it means that its impact wasn't as high. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. So the other
But
thing is,
I think out of 10, I would give an impact score of probably 7.
I think 7 is fair because I also think in tandem with Harry Potter, the fantasy boom was extraordinary because of the two. Because the one thing I will say is there are certainly Harry Potter readers, there are certainly Lord of the Rings readers, and there are fantasy fans that are impacted by both, but the fantasy genre in general exploded because of the success of both these franchises
Yeah.
together. The other thing is,
I will say though, uh, the movies made people read the books of Harry Potter far more than the movies made people go back and check out the Lord of the Rings
I don't know
books.
if that's actually true because of
I definitely think it is.
the vast majority of our generation saw the movies first before they read the books of Lord of the Rings. I'm
I
not
don't
saying
think.
more people didn't do it. I know more people have read Harry Potter than Lord of the Rings. But I'm saying at the
I
same ratio, there's a lot more people that have seen the Lord of the Rings movies and then went back to read the source material and got more obsessed with the source material, me being one of them.
I think I would be very curious to see like I don't know how you would even figure that out,
Right.
but I don't think that many people go back and check out the Lord of the Rings books.
You'd be surprised, but I think I'm part of the niche audience that gets all that material. So I think there's a bias in that,
Yeah.
certainly. The other thing that I think is really interesting is the impact by which one thing I always want to talk about is, are you a standard bearer? Are you a flagship? Are you what everyone's judged by? Like when we were growing up, sports television production was everything was judged off of Sports Center. Were you less than, more than, or equal to Sports Center? When you talk about sports broadcasting, are you let's go back to Monday Night Football way back in the day. Are you less than, better than, or equal to Monday Night Football? In film, when it comes to the fantasy film and the epic specifically, you are always judged based off the Lord of the Rings. More so than any other fantasy franchise ever. You are always judged by Lord of the Rings. Which is why also I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings, because no fantasy franchise has ever been as good as Lord of the Rings in terms of quality. It's not close. So I do think a 7 is very fair because I don't think it changed the industry
Now this doesn't say everything,
as much, but
but I did look up both books on Goodreads, which I think is probably the most popular book site in
yeah.
terms of reviews and
It's
stuff.
not a great platform, by the way, but the most popular reviews
Eh,
website.
it's okay. Yeah, I don't love it, but it's okay. Fellowship of the Ring has a 4.41 out of 5 stars, which is great. But it only has 3,179,000 ratings.
Sure.
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, so I'm just taking both
Sure. First
the
ones, yeah.
first books, has 11,519,000.
Yeah.
So like I do think in terms of books, more people went and checked out Harry Potter after watching the movies.
Which is hilarious because the books aren't even close. Lord of the Rings is better.
Not even, I would say complete opposite. The books of Lord of the Rings are not better than the movies. The books of Harry Potter are better than the movies.
Maybe.
I wouldn't even say it's even close. Like it's I never say the books are better or the movies are better than the books. But Lord of the Rings, I think the movies are better than the books.
I have agreed with you on that point before. So yeah, it comes down to preference. I think Lord of the Rings is a
Yeah,
better
it
book.
did 100%. So now that it's weighted out of 100, John Wick's final score is 72.68 out of 100.
Interesting.
Lord of the Rings. Just
Does it hit the standard that we thought it might? That's the question.
no, it doesn't.
Really?
But it absolutely demolishes it. 88.33.
That is an extremely difficult total to beat.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I actually did think it was going to break the 90 mark. It's very close.
I'm assuming nothing's going to get to the 90
No,
mark then.
I can't imagine it will.
All right, in the final, Lord of the Rings has defeated. John Wick has finally died. And ironically, in the fourth battle, he made it through 3 movies and he couldn't make it through the fourth one.
I'm
The
glad
Lord
to
of
see him die.
the I know you're not a big John Wick guy, but very you got to give it up. Very respectable performance from John Wick.
I think he was a bit lucky in terms of his draw as well.
I mean, yeah, Halloween Pirates and then MCU Phase 3 as your strongest
Yeah,
opponent, which Phase 3 was a good competitor. But
yeah, it is.
Halloween and Pirates were.
Those were gimmies.
So I just redid. So for those that are watching in YouTube specifically and not Twitch, we're recording this live on Twitch the day the NCAA tournament really begins, and I just did my bracket. And as a rule, I always pick a 6-11 or 5-12 upset at least once, and I usually include at least one 2-15 upset because on average, every year or so, or every like 2-3 years, you always get a 2-15 upset for some reason.
Where's Wisconsin ranking in
We
this?
only got a 5, which a lot of people said was a little low, but
It's pretty good.
but some people argue we should be a 3 or 4 seed, but we're 5. This is the first time in almost a decade I did not jokingly put Wisconsin in the final. I had them going to the Final Four this year. So
I have no idea about how good they are anymore.
I believed I picked number 2 seed Iowa State as my winner because I hate picking a 1 seed. So I just go chaos bracket.
Yeah,
So, but it is certainly something in which, like John Wick got a bunch of like this team. Let's be honest. They're happy
John
to
Wick
be
to
here.
me,
They're
John
happy.
Wick to me was probably like an 11 seed that went surprisingly far.
Yeah, you're just like this is a good
Except,
team, but
except they're an 11 seed that went up against 16 seed, 15 seed.
and
Like,
then like a 5 seed or a 4 seed.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very interesting one. Which is why last year. By the way, are you liking this model more or the 64 model we did last year for the action scene tournament?
I like this one only because, like, I honestly do really enjoy doing research about like the numbers.
Yeah,
Like, because I a lot of the times there are surprises in there, so I do like this one.
I'm very interested to see what we're gonna pick for next year because I know we actually really do enjoy doing this, which is why we still do it. It's definitely not like our biggest number getter, but we just enjoy this and it makes something different that we can do that other people don't
Yeah.
do. So I'm interested to see what
Okay.
we do.
What's
Now,
gonna be taking on Lord of the Rings?
Indiana Jones, which got here by it took out one of Dylan's darlings, The Nightmare on Elm Street. Talk about a 1 seed versus a 16 seed there.
And not so much of my darling. I don't love Nightmare
You
as
just
much
love,
as I like
yeah.
Halloween and Friday.
Then we had a Spielberg Civil War, which Indiana Jones slayed the T Rex in Jurassic Park. Then it took out what looked to be an inevitable run. It looked like the destined run. How to Train Your Dragon was barely, and I'm talking barely by less than 1 point, defeated by Indiana Jones. So Indiana Jones makes it to the final 4 by 3 victories. Meanwhile, The Dark Knight has again turned into a bit of a juggernaut. It took out the play-in winner of Mad Max. It took out The Godfather. Thank God for Godfather 3, because that would be a different battle if it was even close.
100%.
It would have been much closer. I don't think it's a shoe-in win for The Godfather, but it would have been much closer. And then The Dark Knight also took out another brewing juggernaut in Toy Story. So in terms of a way to the final, I don't know if any franchise has actually played better competition than The Dark Knight consistently.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Besides Lord of the Rings and Dark Knight are the two that I would argue had the best level of competition.
Recapping Indy, you got an 8 from me, a 9 from you, 8.06 critic score, 8.24 audience, 3.54 average on Letterboxd, and 7.36 on IMDb average. Now we need the impact. This one's tough. because you do get like a huge onslaught of like Indiana Jones ripoffs in the 80s. Um, and they kind of made the template for action adventure moving forward.
They're the standard. Indiana Jones is the standard by which I think. Here's another thing that I want to put an impact score as best you can is I've heard this about books, I've heard this about movies, is the legacy project, to which by rule you don't try to make it, you don't try to make something like it because everyone knows it can't be outdone. Every action adventure franchise, they always try to be indie, but they always try to do something different because they know they can't be better than indie.
Also, there it's not just movies that are ripping off Indiana Jones. Like Uncharted, unquestionably, is an Indiana Jones ripoff.
Tomb Raider, same deal.
Yeah, Tomb
And then the
Raider,
best part is
yes.
Tomb Raider, to become more successful and reboot themselves, became more like Indiana Jones.
Yeah. And I mean, technically speaking, Indiana Jones isn't a wholly original thing. It is kind of a riff off of serials of the 40s.
Sure, it's certainly have a basis in that. It's no different than if you look at it like Star Wars is supposed to be the mix of Flash Gordon and then the sci-fi movies of like the
Yeah.
40s and the 50s, and then put in George Lucas's own ideas of pacing and things.
So in terms of technology, indie really doesn't have a huge impact. It
It's
kind of
more
had
of a, it rides the crest of the wave, and it's more of a, it puts the seasoning on, it doesn't cook the meal. It's more of the just the seasoning on
yeah,
top
I
of
was
stuff.
going to say it kind of just rides the wave of practical effects at the time,
Yeah,
where it's just like they did everything they could extremely well. They didn't really create new technologies with any of the movies,
sure.
but that's not a huge mark
They were
against it or anything.
certainly advancing things, but they were part of the process to advance them. They weren't the innovator to make the advancements start. Because I look at, I've now done so much deep dives into indie because of ILM and my love for ILM as a company and their history. Very much, I like Indiana Jones got to run because Star Wars walked for a couple years beforehand, and
Mhm.
then they got to do some different stuff and change some things up because they had the best crew ever assembled to because of Star Wars. I
I
One thing I would also like to put an impact score is more than any other franchise still in the tournament. I think you have to give a huge boon to Indiana Jones because still it's a talking point where it took a 20-year hiatus and people were still rabid for Indy. And then people, even after a bad entry in the internet era, still wanted another Indiana Jones almost another 15 to 20 years later as well.
yeah. I can I just point out I kind of hate collider.com.
Sure.
I'm on a website. I'm on their website right now and they have a top 10 worst movies that tried to be Indiana Jones. And with on their list, they list both Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny.
Is it
On a
wrong
list,
though?
yes, you can't name other movies within its own franchise as trying to be Indiana Jones. It is Indiana Jones.
I I get their argument. I wouldn't personally put them on the list, but I get the argument.
When I look at that list, I'm expecting, ripoffs, stuff like that. Like, I don't know. That just bugs me. But they do have quite a few that I do agree with.
Also, I will say, of the existing franchises in this tournament, Indy has the most staying power out of any of them. It's the most
Does it
timeless.
have the most staying power, though, for our generation and not everyone else's? Because I don't know how young people actually feel about Indiana Jones, honestly.
The only thing I will say is I do believe that I find it harder to use Indy as a connection point every single year. So I think you're correct in that.
Okay. Yeah, I straight up don't know because I don't talk to many younger people.
But you don't talk to many people in general.
It's true, 100%.
um,
The
so,
majority of people I talk to are much older than me because they work at the post office.
but I have yet to meet someone when Indy comes up in conversation that wants to try to pretend Indy is less than. They like you don't get. It's one of the most consistent. Yeah, I gotta give it to you. Indy's great when they watch it. Like even if they're like, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I have to admit, it's really good. It's just not, my inherent my cup of tea. I will say it has had staying power for 50 years almost at this point. You know, but having said that, do I have concerns for moving forward? Sure, which is another reason I think I'm even more strongly considering being a champion of that movie where when it's my responsibility to introduce film to people in my own personal life, one of the first movies I'm always like, have you seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? And if you haven't, shut up, finish this conversation,
Yeah,
and go watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then we can go have that conversation.
I think it also you can't give it a impact score without mentioning at least that it really these people's careers were already started and they had started go on a boom, but you really get a solidified like two huge stars of Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg
Well, also,
because like
it
they had made stuff that was already extremely popular, well received stuff.
yeah,
But once you get Indiana Jones, it's like okay, these are two literal icons of Hollywood now.
I would argue, obviously, it's not the same as Star Wars. George Lucas has a similar impact because
True. Yeah.
George Lucas goes from oh my god, the genius behind Star Wars to what at the time George Lucas could do no wrong because he's
Yeah.
coming off American Graffiti, which was really popular at the time,
Best Picture nominee.
and then everyone's like, "What is this dumb space movie he's making?" And legitimately, it cannot be understated. Changes the world of both film and pop culture, and just in general, the world.
Yeah.
And then he gets to partner with his best friend, and they make the best movie they've ever all made together. Like
Yeah. And
it's
the
insane.
first one, and also Raiders kind of legitimizes the action genre in a prestige way as well.
Yes, it does.
Because Raiders is nominated for Best Picture, which I mean you wouldn't expect that, except maybe nowadays.
See, if that was released now, I think it gets a nomination. But especially when 81, that is not a real thing. It's
Yeah, it's really not. It's definitely they definitely lean more towards what people historically think of is the Oscars, where it's a little more snooty.
well the one other thing I would like to point out with Raiders is ironically, even compared to Star Wars, when you actually know it, Indiana Jones is one of the first movies that is planned as a sequel trilogy or as a franchise. Because Star Wars, George Lucas turns it into a trilogy because he has the main story of the first trilogy. He gets the approval for the movie, and then in negotiations gets the rights to make the sequels. But originally he's like, I want to make Star Wars, and then he realized, oh shit, I can't make this whole movie. So I'm gonna just cut it and put all the bunch of stuff of the first act into a movie and make it a movie. Where he and Spielberg together decide he's like, if you're gonna do it, I need you to make three. I really want to make this an adventure series, and it's one of the first movie franchises.
Yeah. Also, it should also be stated that Lawrence Kasdan is a huge part of Indiana Jones as well.
You know,
So it's another player that is, kind of launched off at that point. What are you thinking for a score? Because I think it's at least a 7.5.
I could argue as high as a 9 because
there's only two things that I would say get a 9 or above: Star Wars, and as much as you don't like it, and really I don't love it, I think Avatar probably would be a 9, just in terms of technology alone.
So I would say this is I my judgment is what is a 10 in impact? It's Star Wars. So I just
Yes.
go down from what is from Star Wars is the impact, which is why I constantly said Star Wars needs to make it to the impact round to win.
Yeah,
So
that's the only one who I would say is a 10, is Star Wars.
so I go from down there. I would not put Avatar at a 9. I'd put it about a 7.5 because I don't think pop culturally it's had the same effect. Technology wise, absolutely.
I'm saying for technology, it kind of has to be at least an 8 to 9 because that's literally what the industry is at this point,
Sure.
is virtual production.
True. So I'm fine with Indy getting an 8 because I also think
Okay, that sounds fair.
Indy understatedly is kind of the birth of the movie franchise, where also you started because then you started having Star Wars is the true movie franchise to start, but this is where we're intending to make multiples of these, and we are going to release posters and books and toys and
Yeah.
clothes and T-shirts
It's
and all this
also,
stuff based off of this movie.
yeah, it's also a little bit more unique in the sense that each movie is kind of serialized.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not one overarching story going on between.
Which I think is to its benefit.
Yeah, I would agree completely. So
That's
if
why
we're
they
giving
always
it,
feel fresh because it's a different adventure every time. It doesn't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again.
okay, so we're going with an 8 on impact score here. So
Well, hold on.
now
Don't
let's,
give the final score yet.
oh, I know, let's move down.
Let's go to Dark Knight. The Dark Knight's impact score, I want to say right away, I don't think it's an 8. I don't think it's Indy. I think it's very high. I think it's in between Lord of the Rings and Indy. So in general, I'll start with the score first, and then I'll kind of reverse
So you
engineer.
you think it's 7.5?
I think it could be as high as a 7.5, and I'm kind of reverse engineering back to find my score. That's where I think I'm starting, because I think I probably would have had Lord of the Rings a little bit higher, and I think I didn't allow you to. I agreed with a lot of the points you made to make it a 7. I would say it's right around the similar point. I think there's no way it's bigger than Indy. There's no way of that. I think it has a similar I think it has a similar run like Lord of the Rings, where a lot of its strong points for impact are actually understated things that people don't think about as much.
Well, the thing I'd say is I think the Dark Knight franchise has probably the most invisible impact of all of them, where literally everything had to be grounded and gritty. Not just comic book movies,
That's what I'm
but
saying.
like literally every single franchise tried to do something like The Dark Knight,
Yeah,
which I think actually is a negative on movies as a whole,
I agree.
but it's an undeniable impact on it.
I think that's why people love the MCU is that as much as they got Batman really grounded, the
Mhm.
MCU didn't just try to be only grounded. They got more and more fantastic as time went on.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the Dark Knight there are movies like Blade and X-Men that never get the credit for helping revitalize the comic book movie. And then Spider-Man starts getting a lot of credit for it, rightfully so. But if you look at that 10-year period of the groundswell of where we went from comic book movies are dead to, you never know. Like in a 10-year span, because of the Dark Knight franchise, they go from comic book movies are a once in a blue moon, maybe they work, maybe they don't, to this is the most bankable thing on the planet right now. And they influence the next 15 years to 20 years of filmmaking. Plus, all the stuff you discussed is everything had to be gritty, it had to be real, it had to be grounded. You couldn't have too many elements of, which I think is good and bad. I think it helped ground a lot of franchises. I think that and like Bond simultaneously both becoming really grounded franchises
Yeah,
really helped make movies go from the, well, it's just movie magic. And you're like, I can't keep just giving you movie magic as a reason for why half this
yeah.
shit works.
I think also it, it is worth noting like the Joker in The Dark Knight is probably the one character where everyone compares any movie villain to that.
I mean, it took Vader's place where everyone compares to the Joker.
Yeah, where it goes, okay, is it as good as Heath Ledger's Joker? Like, undeniably, that's one point. It also kind of solidifies Christopher Nolan.
I think it's Nolan's Raiders where people just go, "Yep, he's the guy."
Yeah, and I don't know if Christian Bale becomes as big of a star without the Batman
He
movies.
doesn't. He is he
He might still be regarded as one of the best actors of his generation, but I don't think he's anywhere near
I don't
as
think you get
popular.
I don't think you get half the Christian Bale movies that you do without, because Christian Bale arguably is one of the last really successful old model success stories. And I say that because he does a huge franchise. You take someone already talented, already has a name, but he's not. When Christian Bale is cast as Batman for Batman Begins, Christian Bale is not a household name. He's the some movie people know him,
Mhm.
and he's that kid from Newsies. That's what half of his reputation is at that time. It's not that he didn't do great work in between there, but a lot of people at the time, like I remember when The Dark Knight came out, and she's still a very good friend of mine, but my ex-girlfriend being a Disney person, she's like, hey, it's the same guy from Newsies. Like that's how she knew him, not like the Machinist and the Prestige and stuff like that, right?
Empire of the
Yeah,
Sun,
Empire of the Sun, which underrated Spielberg movie.
Pocahontas.
Yeah, which by the way, Empire of the Sun, underrated Spielberg movie, gets shit on for no reason. I don't get it. So
Who's talking shit about that movie?
a lot of it's just
Good.
one of the forgotten. It's part of that '80s. We've talked about it before, where for some reason in the late '80s, people just don't respect a lot of what Spielberg's doing, and it's
Oh, I
garbage.
mean, I agree with that, but I've never heard anyone shit on it.
No one talks about it. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's fair. He's not in his top five,
Well, I
not
mean,
even
that's a
top 10,
hard
probably.
standard. That's a hard standard to crack there.
Yeah. So I would say I'd be okay with either a 7.5 or an 8.
I'm fine with the 7.5 because I think it has now been proven, even as someone who loves it. I mean, you've heard me defend this. I think The Dark Knight is legitimately a perfect film. I literally said it was a what 8.5 9 8.5 10 9, I believe is where I ranked those movies.
Mhm.
As a hardcore Batman fan, who my life has been, it cannot be understated the impact Batman has had on my life and a lot of other people's lives. Batman fans even got to the point where we were like, God, I love this so much. This is not a reflection of the quality of this movie, but it has now made it infinitely harder for us to see all the Batman that we want to see. And that is something I think is worth noting for that. I would go Dark Knight is a 7.5 in impact. Also, as I stated, it changed the Oscars and how people have to award things because it was snubbed that year from not getting a Best Picture nominee.
Yep.
And I mean, we've talked about it before where I think it's valid enough where you're like, I don't agree that it's the Best Picture winner of that year, but I understand why you argue it. I think that says a lot, even if you're saying that. When I was like,
Yeah.
it's
I
the Best Picture
mean,
of 2008.
it definitely deserves to be nominated for Best Picture. That's for sure.
But going back,
Okay.
it's like it's a success.
I do
It's the
agree with
last
the
success story,
7.5.
by the way. Where I don't think you get the fighter without the Dark Knight. I don't think you get Ford versus Ferrari without the Dark Knight. I don't think you get a lot of like the other
I do think you
stuff.
probably do get it I just don't think Christian Bale is a household name like he is now.
Right.
Without it, because he was undeniably a great actor,
Oh,
regardless.
BT Dub, very unrelated. Did you see the reports that they might be making Heat 2?
That's been in a rumor for 10 years.
No, I know, but I'm saying, did you see who they're going to have for it?
I probably did, but
They're trying final talks for DiCaprio and Bale.
uh,
So they can kind of have a, like, what if these two finally were in a movie together kind of thing.
well, if Michael Mann's making it, I'm not holding out hope. It's good. Nothing against Michael Mann. I just don't think he's a great filmmaker.
Let's go 7. I'm going to go 7.5 for The Dark Knight in terms
I
of
think
impact.
I think I agree with that. Okay. Indy, final score out of 100. 79.62.
Okay.
Dark Knight, out of 100, 85.37. And now we get into the final.
Oh,
Actually, so real quick, the bronze medal would be going to Indy
yep.
because John Wick is a 72.68. So actually, Indy kind of manhandles John Wick. Even
I just want to say this. Obviously, clearly in jest. Steven Spielberg, if you're out there watching, you must be kicking yourself for making King of the Crystal Skull and letting them make Dial of Destiny, because had you not done that, maybe you win. Maybe you win.
it's definitely closer. That's for sure.
So Spielberg, you could have done better by us. You just didn't let those things happen.
Okay, so now we get to the point of
We're kidding, Steven. You're still the god we worship by. So.
Now we get to Lord of the Rings versus The Dark Knight, which by number, Lord of the Rings takes it.
Yeah.
By 3 points. Almost exactly 3 points, actually. 88.33, 85.37. Is there any argument for the Dark Knight trilogy being better than Lord of the Rings? Because even if we just look at it movie by movie, I think Lord of the Rings takes it.
I think, one, the highest point of all 6 films that we are considering is in the Dark Knight's favor.
Really?
I do.
I don't agree with that.
I don't think it's a landslide, but I don't consider, as much as I love it, I do not consider Return of the King perfect. I consider The Dark Knight perfect. Like, that is a 10. That is an absolute 10 out of 10 movie that has defined a generation of. It is amazing to me how I will listen to a football podcast and people will still bring up, and it ain't The Dark Knight, so I don't care. Like, it's just like that's their standard bearer.
One sec here. I'm going to take a look at all my notes here because I did extra notes.
But I agree, Fellowship and Two Towers are a better combination than Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises.
So in terms of, I did best of the best, worst of the worst, and the whole tournament. Rotten Tomatoes, best of the best. Number 1, Godfather. Number 2, Godfather 2. Number 3, Toy Story. And then number 4, tied for number 4, is Two Towers is in there. The Dark Knight is not. Tied for number 4 is How to Train Your Dragon 1 and Empire Strikes Back.
Goddamn franchise that won't go away, man.
Two Towers, No Way Home, Raiders, Toy Story 4, and Dead Reckoning. An odd pairing, out of this said.
In terms of what I view, I think the 3 best movies all made the Final Four. I think the best movie just lost and took bronze.
Yeah, and then Letterboxd.
It's Raiders, Dark Knight, Return of the King. Those are the 3 that I'm like, those are the undisputed best of the best.
Yes, and now in terms of best of the best on Letterboxd, it goes number 1, Godfather 2. Number 2 has 3 movies tied at a 4.5. Return of the King, The Godfather, and The Dark Knight. But then you also have number 3 tied for 3rd is Empire Strikes Back and Two Towers. So it is weighted in terms of Lord of the Rings, just movie by movie, taking it as
Sure.
well.
So I'm going to do this as best as I can as a sports caster. Arguments for the Dark Knight, because that's really what you have to do if you're doing this, because the argument for the Lord of the Rings is made. And you've heard me. I love the Lord of the Rings. I'm not arguing against the Lord of the Rings. I think that impact score does make sense, that on an industry-wide basis, the Dark Knight had more of an impact than the Lord of the Rings, number one.
I would
Number
agree.
two, I think the Dark Knight franchise as a whole is a friendlier franchise to watch for the majority of moviegoers than Lord of the Rings. Runtime is a big part of that, but I also think it's a more straightforward, approachable story for a modern audience as compared to Lord of the Rings. I think that's more of a critique of the modern audience than I do Lord of the Rings or Dark Knight. But
I don't know if I agree with that.
because the
Only
runtimes are
because,
significantly smaller, they're significantly smaller.
yes, but just like looking at movie by movie, so Batman Begins, and these are audience reviews, really.
Yeah.
Taking out critics, right? You have Batman Begins at 94, Dark Knight at 94, Dark Knight Rises at 90. Those are Rotten Tomato score.
Yep.
But then Letterboxd is 3.8, 4.5, 3.8. Then you have IMDb 8.2, 9.1, 8.4. And then when you look at Lord of the Rings, it's way more consistent
Oh, yeah.
because it's 95, 95, 86, 4.4, 4.4, 4.5, and then 8.9, 8.8, 9.0.
Yeah.
So like even in just in terms of like the populace, it is way more consistent in terms of Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, here's the thing. I'm trying to make the argument for the final here. Because the other thing is this,
I think
ironically enough, I have turned to where in times of comfort, boredom, need for feeling anything, I am more prone to now go watch the extended editions of Lord of the Rings than I am watching a Dark Knight franchise movie. And it's part of that is the protections I've put on the Dark Knight,
yeah.
where
I
I've
also
stated that before. I protect the Dark Knight where I'm like, if I'm not in the perfect mood, I'm not watching it, because I don't ever want to have
yeah.
a experience with the Dark Knight. I always want to have the best experience
Um
possible.
I don't love throwing this in there, but also in terms of messages that they're sending, I like the message of Lord of the Rings far more than I like.
Well, compared to every franchise, Lord of the Rings is a better message than anybody. It's literally a story based off of what if a bunch of people just self-sacrificed and did the right thing because it's the right thing. It's
Yeah,
why
but I'm saying like the Dark Knight is much more ambiguous,
oh yeah.
a lot less like black and white morality to it.
Yeah.
I connect far more with the Lord of the Rings message than I do anything in the Dark Knight
I agree.
trilogy.
I do too.
Um, I just don't see. I don't see a world where Dark Knight takes it.
Better here, let's just go through. Better music. Dark Knight or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings,
Okay. Better cinematography.
Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Um Better action set pieces.
Um, they're very hard to compare because they're different
They're so different. Oh yeah, I know.
in terms of style. But I'd probably say I do get like more of a thrill from Lord of the Rings as well.
Okay. Um
Acting, cast, ensemble,
yeah, I would say
Lord of the Rings,
ensemble. Ensemble is fair.
Lord of the Rings,
I would say what is the best standout performance of both? I would assume it's Heath Ledger's Joker, probably.
Heath Ledger's Joker, and then probably Gandalf.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
people would say Ian McKellen.
Viggo Mortensen's also fucking crushing it. As is Sean Astin. Sean Astin's so good.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just thinking of in terms of who did like the Academy most of the awards, if they got nominated for any acting awards, it was usually Ian McKellen.
A great universal injustice is the fact that the ultimate supporting character didn't get nominated for a supporting role. And in
Well, one of the problems I think is the fact of
who do you pick?
who do you pick? One, and two, are there supporting roles, or are they all supporting roles? There's not really a lead role in Lord of the Rings.
Right, like Frodo is the lead, but
I bet I bet you any money Samwise Gamgee has just as much screen time.
he's close. It's not Frodo has it, but Sam's close.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think a perfect example to that question is watching Dropout. There was a one of the episodes of Game Changer. One of the questions was main character of the Lord of the Rings, and they had to go find buzzers, whatever. And the answer that was given, granted, it was a nerd who gave the answer. Erica literally goes, "Well, you could say Frodo, but then you could also argue that it's Aragorn, but then you could also argue it's Gandalf. And you could even throw Sam in there to a degree." And it's like, yeah, I think that answers your question. There's like 4 to 5 people that you could argue are the main, like in a weird way, Sauron's almost even the main character because he's the most consistent presence for one team.
Yeah.
Um,
In terms of what do I think is the best performance, I would probably go Heath Ledger.
yeah. I'm just
Awards, Lord of the Rings takes it.
yeah,
And not just Oscars, I mean
everything.
awards in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make a final out of this so it isn't just a 2-minute conversation. Yeah, Lord of the Rings is the best.
Well, we've been talking a lot longer than 2 minutes.
No, I know, but at first it did start like what can Dark Knight do? And I was like, huh.
I think the only argument for the Dark Knight is, and this is definitely an argument, it's not even like a set in stone thing, is eyes of the franchise. It's like Dark Knight, like you said, you would say Dark Knight is a higher high than any of the Lord of the Rings. I wouldn't agree with that. I'm just saying it is an argument.
I money wise, that's another bearing on
Lord of the Rings
audience.
has to take it, I'm sure. I
Eh,
can look it up.
Look it up. I wouldn't be shocked. I think it's close. I don't think it's like a landslide either way.
Give me a second here and
I
do
think the
some
issue is
math
the
again.
Batman Begins versus Fellowship, because Fellowship was a Christmas release. It was the perfect Christmas release during that time, and everything else. Also, hate to be Harry Potter during that fucking year. Oh my god, we're coming in. It's gonna be great. Whatever. It's like Lord of the Rings. You're like, shit. We have the ultimate competitor.
Well, Harry Potter wasn't hurting at the box office.
No, no, but it's just like you could argue it's a great help for us that people are in the fantasy mood, but also, damn, we might not even be considered the best in our category this year because of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I don't think. Honestly, I think Warner Brothers was fine with it.
Yeah, New Line being a Warner Brothers company
Yes,
essentially, being like,
exactly. They're like, hey, we don't give a fuck. We're
we're
making money
we're
like
printing
crazy.
money here.
Okay, I got Lord of the Rings, all their numbers. Batman Begins.
Batman Begins is going to be the outlier of all 6 of them. I think. I think.
Oh, definitely, it definitely is.
At one time was the #1 movie of the year in 2005. I can tell you that. I
Oh, that's true. Yes, for a little bit.
Yes. Hence the
Dark
reason it
Knight.
gave me one of the greatest jump scares of my life when my bastard 11-year-old brother decided to scare the shit out of me when I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so Lord of the Rings would take it, by the way, because Fellowship, 897 million. Two Towers, 945. Then Return of the King, 1.149 billion.
Filthy.
Batman Returns, 375 million.
I mean, Batman Begins.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, Dark Knight, 1.008 billion.
Wow, didn't even outdo Return of the King. That's crazy.
And then Dark Knight Rises 1.085 billion. So
Eh,
technically speaking,
couple hundred
Dark Knight
million
Rises
bucks.
did the best.
Yeah, I mean
And then
it's a sequel to a generational defining film. Like,
Batman Begins, that's pretty low, 375 million.
I mean, I think it showed where superhero movies were. I think it showed
Yeah,
where,
that's true. That's
and
true.
also, I mean, I remember even like the marketing on the movie was very good in retrospect. But I was a huge Batman fan at the time, and I was like, "This ain't Batman. What are we doing?" And then I watched it. I was like, "This is amazing." But at the time, I was like, "What's this ninja bullshit Batman? Like, what are we doing here?" And then I was like, "Oh, I get it." But
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue that Lord of the Rings doesn't deserve it.
are we calling it? We saying it's a valiant effort? Yeah, it's Lord of the Rings. So the winner of the greatest movie franchise, objectively speaking, this is objective fact now.
The only two categories where Dark Knight takes it, technically speaking, is audience score and impact score for us. Because audience score for Lord of the Rings is 9.2, Dark Knight is 9.27.
So it's
So
still
still
really
extremely
close.
close.
Still really close. It's
We're
not
talking less than a percentage.
right. So you couldn't argue that. 'Cause I think those actually are really, really important scores. Like if the audience score is majorly different, I'd be like, that's you got to take that into account. The audience is just telling you something.
But even in terms of just like Laura, Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd, and IMDb, Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
wins it.
So objectively, the greatest film franchise of all time is Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings, not including The Hobbit.
What would if you were to say like at the very beginning of this, what you would say, Lord of the Rings?
I'm not gonna lie. I would have went 3 for 4 on the final four because I really thought Indy had a shot. The only way.
Oh, I just meant your personal.
Oh, personal. I looked at the Lord of the Rings and I said, "I that's hard to beat." I mean,
Okay, yeah,
because
mine would be Harry Potter, but that's 100%
I mean,
with my inherent bias.
I think the three franchises that mean the most to me were all in the final four because I can look at waves of my life as both the creator and an audience member and what inspires me the most. And all three of my favorite things on the planet were in the final four. I don't
Mhm.
think as an adult now, I am more inspired by anything than Lord of the Rings. I think it's truly the greatest story impactor on my life currently and of my adult life. My adolescence through early 20s phase, nothing outdoes Batman, and Indiana Jones has been this constant that has only risen with me more and more and more, which is why like now it's odd. I went from I'll watch Raiders 4 times in a day to I can't tell you the last time I watched Raiders because it's now in that protected vault category where it's going to be interesting in May or June when we bring out Raiders for an episode where I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah,
to the point.
anniversary. Yeah.
Or for instance, another way to talk about it is I've said this on stream before. Ab and I are buying a house, and right around the time that we're finally going to get settled and move into the house is May time. And I've for 2 weeks now, I've been debating what's the first movie I watch in that house. Like I really want to christen that house with the best movie first because that's the stupid things I do in my brain. I'm like, and it kind of is. I'm like, do I start with Fellowship? Do I do Raiders? Do I do Back to the Future? Dark Knight would be in that conversation. Like they're
Mhm.
all there. So I think this does show the value of franchises a lot in a good, positive way. There's like you want consistently great experiences at the movie theater. That's why franchises exist beyond just the obvious studios want to make money.
Yeah, I do think there's I wouldn't say it's bias. I would say it's actually kind of reflective. Is there's not that many recent franchises that are highly regarded.
Well,
John Wick got into the final four, but that was by circumstance.
Yeah,
And that's a
think,
new franchise.
well, I mean, just look around. I think there's a lot of mid 2000 stuff in here. There's a
There
lot of
is,
mid
yeah.
2000 stuff, which I think shows you why audience goers are who they are now, because they were raised on the 90s and the 2000s.
Mhm.
To why I think everyone wants, for instance, as of recording tonight, I'm 99% sure I'm going to Ready or Not 2 to review that movie, which I enjoyed Ready or Not 1, but it certainly was not a movie that I was like, gotta have a sequel. I was like, it's a fun little horror outing. Cool. Like,
Mhm.
whatever. Horror, comedy, adventure, whatever. And now I'm like, they're making a sequel to that? Okay, I'll go. But, you know, so I think it is wild to see how many movies are super impactful to an audience that are technically franchise films.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
It's just something that, most people, when you think about it, how many people would actually pick a franchise movie at first glance thinking, like, what's their favorite movie? I don't know how many would say that, but if they actually thought about it, I think that many people, especially in our age category or younger, would pick a
Yeah,
franchise movie.
yeah.
So it is interesting to say the least, but The Lord of the Rings is objectively the greatest movie franchise of all time.
Hard to argue against it.
But I hope you guys have enjoyed our big March project and our March Madness tournament of the greatest movie franchise. Hit us up in the comment section what you guys want for next year, because it's around November, December. Dylan and I are always like, what the fuck are we gonna do for this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, we could do like greatest directors, but if we do that, it's going to be less than 40
Oh yeah.
because let me tell you, this was enough math. If we do greatest directors, then I have to go movie by movie doing the numbers on that.
I was thinking maybe we could go comic booky and do comic book movies. We could do horror movies if you wanted to. Or we could do animated movies, and I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
Because then I also think you get a gambit of film history in there. Because, like, legitimately, Snow White is a great movie.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you're going to get an entry from that's almost 100 years old.
Got a year to think about this.
But yeah, hit us up in the comment section what you guys think, what you think should have been there. We know Star Wars is going to probably be the most controversial because everyone's a fucking Star Wars fan. And I'm a Star Wars fan too, but math wise, you just can't argue it.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to argue with the numbers. That's why we did it.
And that's with the
That's what.
flawed numbers. We took the flawed numbers that are inflated by Star Wars fans. We didn't even take
Yeah.
we didn't even edit them down to what we actually think they are.
Yeah.
That's with a 4.0 letterbox grade for Revenge of the Sith. Okay?
Yep.
There were movies that are 20 times the movie Revenge of the Sith that did not get a 4.0 on Letterboxd. So, but that is going to do it here, folks. Thank you guys so much for watching and be a part of this. Like, comment, subscribe on the videos as much as you possibly can. Subscribe to the channel, Those Davies Boys, and go check out our podcast, Wisco Movie Watchers Podcast. Episode 100 is coming up soon too, so we're gonna have a bunch of new stuff for that one, so that's gonna be fun. And go check out Really Snappy Gaming for some great gaming content, and that is also the home of our Twitch streaming. So follow us over on Twitch as well. But thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and be a part of it. It is truly tremendous for you to be here. Peace, love, and hugs to you all.
Bye.
Goodbye.